Okay, I call to order this Oconee County Planning Commission meeting for Monday, August the 3rd, 2026 at 6 p.m. Mike, would you lead us in prayer, please?
I will. Everyone pray with me if you will. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us together today. Please guide our thoughts and words and help us make wise decisions to help guide the future of our county to the benefit of all of our citizens. Give us wisdom and clarity to work together to accomplish this task at hand. Please continue to watch over our first responders, our linemen, our healthcare workers, and all those who have dedicated themselves to the health and safety and betterment of our county and our fellow man. We thank you for all your tremendous blessings. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Mike. Would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Okay, has everybody reviewed the minutes from the July 20th Planning Commission meeting?
I do not remember calling the meeting to order.
I was gonna say.
That probably should have, that was an error that I caught later and did not make the correction.
Mr. Hayman.
So your motion is to change that to,
Who did it? Was it you?
That was my mistake.
Mr. Haney?
The M got away from me.
I'll make that motion, although I didn't remember who it was.
I second it.
All in favor of the change? It's unanimous. Mike Johnson made the motion and Britt seconded it. Any other comments on the meeting minutes for July the 20th? As far as discussion, it says Mr. Nix requested Mr. Hester. Okay, that was. This the one where I wasn't here, right? How could I have requested that?
Did I give y'all the wrong thing?
Okay,
No,
so-
you were at the special meeting. You were not here the meeting before that.
Right.
You were at the called meeting on the 20th,
Okay, all
the
right.
special meeting. Now I'm getting myself confused. You were
So-
at that meeting, but it was the meeting before that, you were on vacation, correct?
Yeah, wouldn't I
Because
have,
Nikki ran that meeting.
wouldn't I have called the July 20th meeting to order?
That's right, it'd be Mr. Nix instead of Mr. Haynes.
Things,
I'm
but
so confused.
I would say at this point, it was a complete typo on my side. So it could have been I was working off of a previous meeting to make the correction. So let's make sure that is accurate. Would you like me to check the
Last
video?
meeting was the July 20th meeting.
Yeah, it's just, we've got
What I missed
a motion
last time.
approved to change it to Mr. Haney, but I think it probably should be me
which one
on
is
this
this?
one.
Call to
This is the 20th. This is the special meeting.
Yeah, I was here for that one. I wasn't here for the first week of
Correct.
July meeting.
I think I just put the wrong name in entirely. But I'll check the video to confirm before we,
Oh, he was here.
We approved the minutes to the first week of July meeting,
Yes, sir.
right?
We
We've already
did it.
approved it, so.
yes, sir,
I
we're
got you.
good. This is the one on the special, and I think I just noticed.
I think the amendment to the motion would have been Mr. Nix called the meeting to order.
Okay.
That's a friendly amendment, I would think, yes. No vote needed.
I apologize.
Any other comments on the, July 20th special meeting minutes? All in favor? All right, actually, a motion to approve. I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second that.
Mr. Nick's motion to approve, Mickey second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Unanimous.
Votes unanimous. Do I have any public comment? Public comments for tonight?
Not for non-agenda.
Is this for non?
Just for agenda.
So you have a agenda-specific comment? Okay. No non-agenda item comments, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
How about commission member comments for tonight? I'd like to welcome Mrs. Teresa Spicer back. She has an additional grandchild. I know we mentioned that last meeting, but it's worthy of mentioning again.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Any other commission member comments? Okay. Staff comments?
Just that the additional copies, for those that did not get the copies of previous, recommended change 2632, and then the RV ordinance, those are, laying up there. Some of you got them at the workshop, but the rest of them should get them here. We're done.
Thank you, Mrs. Hester. Okay, the agenda item we've all been looking forward to. Agenda item number 8, discussion regarding ordinance development workshops number 1 and 2. So I want to set the stage for this whole discussion tonight. First of all, I'd like to make a motion that we end this meeting at 9 o'clock. Either we end it because it's not carrying out further, or the backstop is 9 o'clock PM.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion on that?
We don't want to make it 8:30?
That's a 3-hour discussion. This,
If you have an amendment to my motion, I will gladly consider it.
I liked your last time when you said 8:30 was the cutoff.
Is everybody good with 8:30 then? My motion,
second.
so we're amending my motion to 8:30.
Do we hear it? Do we hear it?
Any more discussion? 8:30, meeting stop time, regardless of what discussion we had. All in favor?
Unanimous?
Okay, the motion was Dave Nixon, the second was Mr. Haney. All right, that's the first piece of business on the discussion of this ordinance development. The second is, we need to, try to confine our discussion to workshops 1 and 2. There will be other workshops, and there will be other planning commission meetings to discuss those. So, I'd like to also thank, Mike and Britt for attending the first 2 workshops, and the staff for working hard with us on those. And, I think we've got 3 volunteers for we can have up to 3 people in the next workshop. It's next Wednesday. I won't be at that one because I'll be working. I think we've got Mickey and, Mr. Marcingill. And we can have 1 additional person, so you guys can decide that. We won't be definitive on that. I think Joe might.
What
I'll
time
be
is it?
done to that.
Next Wednesday.
There's 2 from 9 to 12 and then 1 to 4. You can attend one or both.
And if we have 4 planning you can't have a quorum, so if 4 planning commissioners arrive, y'all can discuss among yourself who wants to go home, so. Or you can discuss it beforehand. It's up to y'all. All right, so that'd be workshops 3 and 4 next week, next Wednesday. All right, so everybody should have a copy of the workshop report, which is about 25 pages, workshops 1 and 2. And then also you should have a copy of the ordinances that we're working with. The ordinances that we already have some approved changes to from previous planning commission meetings. Chapters 26, 32, and 38. So everybody got those? So I think where we'll start is discussion of workshop 1.
Do you want public comment?
Oh, yeah, we
Sorry.
have public comments.
Making sure we get out of here at 8:30, huh?
Yeah. Sorry,
Good
Tom.
evening, my name is Tom Markovich, for those who don't know who I am.
My comments are gonna be very limited tonight because we're at the very beginning of this thing, and I'm positive I will have much more to say as time goes on. However, I do want to just mention that I've looked through some of the things that have been brought up in the workshop, and I questioned some of the issues when it comes to jurisdiction. Jurisdiction of the planning commission per se is very finite. There's no question about the jurisdiction, and it is not a wide open thing. Especially when it comes to things like, and I want to bring up specifically stormwater. Stormwater is a federal mechanism. Stormwater is a pollutant, period. The feds have said that, and we're in the building and development business, we are all controlled by what's known as the NPDES, National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. They just came out with the latest general permit in February. Now, I'll be the first to say that there were a number of groups across the state that were lobbying DHEC to no end before that general permit was issued to begin increasing riparian buffers and other things that were associated with it, and other regulations that had to do with stormwater. DHEC made it exceptionally clear they do not have the authority, period. It is a federal function. And so when I see people trying to start to regulate stormwater, it makes me just a little nervous, because if DHEC doesn't have the authority to regulate beyond what the feds are already doing, I really don't see how the county can. So, and then I saw some other things that dealt with the idea of having an impact study going beyond doing roads. And I kind of understand where the idea is coming from, but again, here's another situation where there's very limited jurisdiction. The schools come under the school board, period. County doesn't even, they can't dictate what the school board does except for approving their budget. And there's other things, power, electricity. Planning commission, county doesn't have any jurisdiction over that. So I don't know how we can be forced into doing impact studies on electricity when there's nothing that the county can do about that. I mean, they don't, that's all regulated at the state, period. And so there's a number of things like that, and I just don't want to go down a rabbit hole chasing something that the planning department doesn't really have jurisdiction on. Anyway, we'll have a lot more to talk about in the future, I'm sure. That's all I got for tonight. Thank you.
All right, does anybody want to open the workshop discussion with any motions? Or else I can. All right, here we go. So my motion, well, let me discuss why I'm making a motion. We are still not clear, nor have we decided, what is the definition of a major subdivision. We didn't really come to a conclusion on how many units or lots consists of, or would result in a major subdivision. So I want to make the motion that we change from 11 lots to 40 lots for major subdivision. I think if you'd ask people, what is a major subdivision, they're going to describe the massive moving of dirt and leveling off building lots and construction of 50-plus homes or more, a lot. They're not going to talk about 11 homes or 15 homes even. I think that's a good start to our discussion, that motion, to change from 11 to 40. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, discussion.
So that means you end up with, if there's no septic system available, 20 acres of grading. if there is septic system, 10 acres of grading. So it'll fall in close with similar to the land disturbance of mass grave of Anderson.
And also, if you look at the traffic studies, I think we discussed 0 to 400 trips per day divided by 10 is the threshold for impacting public roads.
Why are we dividing by 10?
10 trips.
In one of the workshops,
That's-
it was discussed that there was a tenfold, when a traffic study was done, there was a tenfold element. So if it was 400 trips per day, that equated by DOT standards.
10 trips per
40
day per
homes.
unit.
1,000 trips per day was 100 homes, and so on.
So that's their formula they're using.
Yeah. Britt?
I want to add into major subdivisions, commercial properties and industrial properties, because they have just as much an impact. They are a major subdivision also. You have the land clearance, you have the traffic.
So you want to make an amendment to the motion?
And I honestly, I don't know what's like commercial size, what size would make the impact. You know, the commercial size, is it 50,000 square feet, is it 20,000? I honestly don't know. And then industrial, the same thing, you know, I don't know what the size that you would classify as a major subdivision.
How do you call that a subdivision though? Because the land is not subdivided.
Well, it is. It has been.
It's not subdivided into 40 different
But
units.
you have the major grading,
Right.
you have the traffic impact.
According to the definition of what a subdivision is.
Can we ask, Mr. Chairman, can we ask staff, is there an ordinance already that deals with commercial or industrial as is being
No, sir.
discussed by Mr. Adams, so it needs to be there then?
There's nothing that supports that.
I
There's
think,
no ordinance that talks about if you're clearing X number of acres or something like that,
No.
other than DES standards.
Correct.
I was thinking in 38 and 32, we had an outline of
Yeah, I don't
commercial.
know that we want to throw that in because it's not there now and it's going to complicate things.
So let me
Yeah,
ask
highway
one more question.
That's on, it's part of the I-85.
And residential commercial. Then we have,
If I can,
I mean, it's not complete. It just, I know under the, give me a minute, I'll shuffle papers around.
so a lot of trips per day by that definition of major and minor.
Let me ask you this, do I have a second to Britt's amendment to my motion? Else we're not going to discuss it,
I'll second it.
okay?
We do have non-residential subdivisions in 32,
Okay.
which deals with the commercial element of this. But I like where he's going, treating major subdivisions as a commercial venture. But it's something that needs more information in and foresight to sort out the details.
So is the idea that if somebody commercially develops a piece of property, so how do you decide if they commercially develop a piece of property, how do you decide if they're equivalent to a 40-home subdivision
Well,
or not?
that'd be a non-residential commercial that we already got. So that's already in chapter 32.
So why do we need to include it in the definition of a residential subdivision?
Well, it depends a lot on where we end up at. And the reason why is subdivision is very complicated in Oconee County. And because we have subdivisions with gravel roads, we have subdivisions with paved roads, we have, there's a vast gamut, and because the definition is so vague, we've got to define what is that? And that's the problem we're running into, is the subdivision, and then you're gonna deal with workforce housing subdivision. Should it look like other residential subdivisions? I don't think so. I think your setbacks would be closer.
Sorry, gentlemen.
And then if you drop down even into affordable housing, if somebody, received enough funding to do affordable housing, more than likely you're gonna have less setbacks, less restrictions on those, and that goes into that priority zone. So those are a lot of the complicated things within subdivisions.
We can make this as complicated as we want and not get it done.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Currently, if somebody is, where does industrial and commercial fall right now when they start coming in and saying, we're gonna clear land and build?
It's non-residential, which your density falls, there's non-residential requirements for lot sizes and things like that. But the design and all that is more dictated by what, DES's stormwater requirements, things like that. So your design is more dictated by that. And then, traffic studies are related to what DOT requires. So we are limited on what we get, only if it falls into that I-85 overlay, that corridor. There's more restrictions there because all of Appendix A applies if it's in that area. So it all depends really, on where it falls, but I don't think we're getting near to the extent of what I'm assuming Mr. Adams was recommending, but we get, the stormwater and all that, our site plan is dictated by what DES is requiring for stormwater. That's really where your site plan.
So I was thinking, so right now, what Mr. Nix is talking about deals with traffic studies, which is a traffic count. From a commercial standpoint, you said there was a traffic study there, but that's run by
Yes, it's based
DOT.
on where the access point is. If it is to a state road, then DOT is gonna require that traffic study just because of encroachment permits. That's where the requirement kicks in, is all about where the encroachment permit is. If it's on a county road, then we'll ask for numbers, but it's not if it is not a full development, then we don't get the traffic study.
I think if anything, while it is an important topic, I do think that it might be a workshop topic as opposed to a topic dealing with it seems like when we're talking about residential subdivisions here, we need to stick with that criteria because you can have a commercial application that has a tremendous amount of traffic, like a Target building, or you can have a commercial application that has 3 people, but they clear 10 acres of everything, and just shaved everything off, both of which are important. But I don't think that they act the same way as when we're talking about a residential homes and traffic count, which is a correlation that's very measurable.
What do you say? I can think of a good example of the latter, where they cleared off 7 or 8 acres and put a building there and 2 people worked there.
I think the application, while important, is different than what we're discussing, I think, at least within workshop 1 and 2.
So do we want to vote on the amendment to the motion, or do we want to rescind that motion?
I'll just rescind it.
Understand you're going to rescind the motion to add commercial considerations to residential subdivision.
Mr. Chairman, one other thing, and if I understood staff correctly, I know that there are some things that may be topics that we want to kind of earmark for 2027. You mentioned as staff that there was not a whole lot of that activity taking place right now at the moment. But from a planning standpoint, as far as commercial activity onto county roads.
I'm sorry, I wasn't sure where you were going.
Which, again, it sounds like that the controlling authorities are DES and DOT. and/or the county if it's on a county road. But currently, a lot of commercial is either gonna be on a state road or even an interstate highway.
We're seeing more of that, yes, sir. I think just as time progresses, that may shift, so definitely a 2027 topic.
So it might be that we wanna just make a mention that should be a topic for 2027 for sure.
Take note of that.
Yes, ma'am.
What are we calling that? Like commercial, reference commercial development or commercial subdivisions? How would you like to reference that?
Commercial development considerations.
Okay.
What was your original motion?
My motion was to change the 11 lot limit defining major subdivisions to 41 lots, or 40 lots, greater than 39, based on a couple of different,
Well, right now, we call it
Items.
11, 10 and 11. Do you wanna say 40 and 41, or do you wanna say 39 and 40?
40 should be the limit,
The
so I guess
number?
41 then. 41's probably reasonable, that'd be equivalent to 11 and 10.
If we're using the 400 mark, 40 then triggers the 400 mark. So wouldn't we
Correct.
rather do 39 and 40 according to that?
Yeah, that was my original motion, so well taken.
So your motion is 39, and
Yeah,
40
greater
triggers
than-
the
greater than- or
new
40 or more is a major subdivision.
major subdivision.
What other?
Well, are you tying this to acreage or not? You could have 40 units in a high-rise on small acres, or 40 acres and one dwelling per acre. They have probably a lot less people than a high-rise situation. So I don't know, just 40 lots by itself, I don't know if it's enough. Like, are you gonna tie it into acreage or not? Or number-
I mean, you could ask the same question about the 11, how's it tied?
Right.
Is it,
It seems like a random number.
is the 40 gonna be lots or units?
I think it's lots. I mean, right, I think that's the motion, was, I think that's currently what the 11 is lots.
So
So the 40 would have to be lots.
It's dwelling units as well.
if I can add to that, might give some context, because it does sound right. I had mentioned to Mr. Nix about a 400 count. When we were in workshop 1 and 2, we had discussed the question of when does DOT stand up and pay attention with a traffic study? Do they pay attention? We were trying to figure out, is a traffic study accurate at an 11-home trigger? Because 11 homes isn't much for a traffic study. And
Right.
it came up to be that DOT starts paying attention at 400 on a traffic count as kind of a minimum number. So it seemed like that trend, we also understood that translated to 40 units. And so less than 40 units didn't really hit the radar.
Where did that come from?
What
That
number?
0 to 400? What was the basis? Do you remember?
DOT
That
number?
came from the DOT road manual.
Yeah, that's a
That's where
DOT
that
number.
came from. Yes, sir. And then our ordinance also references 400.
Right.
400 trips per day as a minor local road.
Yep.
So based on that, we were saying if DOT isn't really hitting a trigger below 400, then why are we requiring a traffic study at 11 if DOT doesn't care till it hits 400? If 11 is really, according to that formula, 44 as a traffic count.
Can I make a motion to have Mr. Markovich comment?
I'll second.
All in favor? All right, Tom, you have the podium, sir.
Just for a second.
I'm trying to help you out here.
What triggers the Department of Transportation is when you file for a permit to access a state road. That's what triggers it. And then they're gonna ask, different things about the specific development. And then you're gonna have to let them know, but they dictate every single thing that you do. I don't care if you build one house on a state road, you're still gonna have to apply for access that. And they're gonna tell you what you can do. If you're too close to a curve, you're gonna move your driveway. There's other things that are all built into that, and rarely does it have to do with the number of trips per day, although trips per day can affect it. So if you're putting in a major, then they're gonna start looking at on and off ramps and all that sort of thing. But, generally, all you have to do is just pull one permit for a house on a state road, and that triggers South Carolina DHEC, period.
So while you're still
DOT,
standing
you
there,
mean?
while our application would also have a DOT application, in many cases, when we're talking about subdivision, MA access to a county road, and we're trying to kind of mirror some of those, as we're trying to come up with when would a traffic study be warranted. And we've determined or suggested that 44 trips per day didn't really warrant paying for a traffic study onto a county road.
110,
What's that?
110.
Well, if it
Oh,
was 11
44, yeah,
homes,
yeah.
44.
Part of that, and that's the other thing to keep in mind, state roads, county roads, two entirely different things. Even though there are some mechanisms within the county system that come out of what is referenced in state, just like the 400 trips per day. But if you go back to what triggers an actual having to do a traffic study on the road is 10 dwellings. If you do 10 dwellings, you've got to do that traffic study for that road, regardless. And that traffic study is going to tell you how many trips per day it is, period.
And you're saying that 10 is set by DOT or set by
No,
us?
that was set by my lawsuit. And so that's where the trigger is, because prior to that, various different size subdivisions they were trying to hit them with an impact fee. And so we came up with a thing, you had to do a study if you were gonna develop 10 lots. If you were gonna develop 10 or more, then you had to do a traffic study. The traffic study tells you what the trips per day is, period. That's the only thing that can tell you what the trips per day is. And I don't think you can just automatically assign.
So now that somebody has come up with the trips per day and they say, okay, the trips per day is 50, or the trips per day is 16, or the trips per day is what then do they take and put it on a graph that says, hey, because there's X number of trips per day, it means you need to take 4 more steps, or because there's X number of trips per day, you don't need to do anything else?
Because also, we spelled out in that particular mechanism, if you trip the 400 trips per day, but the road wasn't designed for it, then you have to upgrade that road.
And that's why we were kind of coming up with that 400 number then.
Exactly.
Under that 400 number, is there you've got to make road upgrades and you've got to do this stuff? Or you can't build this subdivision because there's too tight of a turn and it's in a half a mile?
Not in county rules. No. State rules, yeah. State rules are gonna tell you, the state guarantees your access to a state road, period. They guarantee you, but they can tell you where that access has to be. If you're too close to a curve or some other imminent danger area, they can say, it's gotta go over here. Even if you go, but I want it here, it doesn't matter. They say, go there, you're going there.
So when we talked to, and I appreciate you answering questions here, when we talked to the DOT and they stood up here in front of us, and we were talking about that Kiwi River project, which was just a discussion, it really wasn't actually something that was happening. DOT said, we were going, well, hey, the real area we're gonna notice something is at that Ingalls traffic light on 123, because that's where we notice something right now. And DOT said, well, we're really not, that's not where we put our focus. We put our focus accessing onto 130.
Exactly right.
So is there a number, we're trying to sit there and say, why are we charging somebody a traffic study when there's not gonna be another step after that because it's too little traffic?
Because of a lawsuit, right? So
Well,
are we committed to that?
The numbers got set then. It got set at 10 or greater. You had to do the study, and then there's trip meters in there. If you're gonna exceed 400 trips per day, but the road is not
Who was the lawsuit between you and who?
the county.
So the county,
And it wasn't just me, it was
Decided
the
that
Home Builders
policy.
Association and me.
the county decided, the county's what drove the policy to 10, right?
Actually, the home builders did. We came up with that as a solution to rectify what was going on.
But had you come up with 40, you would have rather come up with 40, right?
We
Because
were
you-
just trying to come up with a number.
You were trying to come up with something so the county would agree to it,
Yeah,
and that was then.
Yeah.
So the question is, and this happens all the time in regulatory world. The question is, can we break that commitment? Well, the county is the regulating agency, so I mean, I think we can change that number.
that's a little bit tricky because it was settled in court. So it's not as simple as,
Well,
How many years ago?
yeah, it is that simple, I think.
I'm not sure.
Because the county is, I think it's a matter of us consulting the legal folks, but I think the county, since the county was the driver of that decision, I think the county has the authority to undo it. And that's typically the way it works with regulatory agencies. If a regulatory agency decides on something, and then sometime later they decide that's unreasonable and overly impactful, I think they have the authority to undo that commitment and remake it.
They probably could, but they're gonna have to tread very carefully, because like I said, that came as a result of a settlement in a lawsuit. The court signed off on it. And actually, it wasn't the county that made the offer, it was the home builders that made the offer.
Right, but they did that knowing that the county would accept it. If they could have offered something less, they would have. If they could have offered 40 or 50, they would have, or 100.
But it's at 10.
Well, they offered 10 because they knew the county would accept it, because it's really a overly burdensome number.
Oh, the county would
It's
have
too low.
accepted 40.
So are you suggesting that 10 is a good number to charge somebody for a road study compared to us saying that it should be 20, 30, or 40?
I'm not saying that it's a good number. All I'm saying is the number that has been set. Now, and here's the big answer to your question is, ask yourself, how many subdivisions have been developed on county roads since 2008 when we came to that settlement? I'm not aware of any. And it's because none of the developers want to go through that process. And then through you get a payback period over 10 years. And, I'm just saying, that thing was set up to resolve this issue of impact fees on the road.
I got a question on that. You said, how many what's have not happened
Subdivisions on county roads.
on county roads? Okay, so they
County
always hit.
Because it only affects county roads. It had nothing to do with the state, because the county doesn't have a dog in that fight.
So when it goes to the state, that 400, well, DOT, you said with any home, they're gonna tell you where the driveway is. But there is a number at which DOT starts going, hey, we need to start looking at adding a deceleration lane, or we need to add a curb, or we need to add a traffic light, or we need to add a stop sign, and I'm assuming that that's more than one, that's another number. And we have been hearing 400 as a number.
And that may be, but I think it depends on which state road you're talking about. We talking about Highway 11, we talking about 123, or we talking about, we have all different classifications, so there's not one particular, they're gonna look at what road you're trying to access, and then they're gonna look at how many units you're trying to put in there, and then they're gonna look at those numbers. And, there are set things that the engineers, when they do a traffic study, there is, per number of residences, they will figure, there's a multiplier in there for trips per day. It's just a thing.
How much is a traffic study?
Mickey, wait a minute, Teresa.
Oh,
I'm gonna let
sorry.
Mickey next.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
I'll
I keep
get
hearing
you
about
after
traffic
me.
studies.
I'll get you after me.
So, was it discussed the difference between a minor road and a major road as far as trips per day on traffic study? Are you familiar with the Nolan and Dolan test?
Very much.
Was that used on this?
No.
It was not. For impact fees, no.
No, but I can tell you that Nolan and Dolan have been used in South Carolina.
Okay.
And, and I have been very involved in some of the impact fee legislation and court cases in this state. And, Dorchester County, I was very involved in that. And, anyway.
Should it be used?
I mean, it's federal legislation. I mean, and those are federal cases. I think and our South Carolina courts have taken they've looked at Nolan and Dolan and used those as examples of law. So it's really kind of up to whichever lawyer decides what road they want to go down. And,
So there is a precedent set in South Carolina?
in South Carolina, definitely.
Teresa?
Yeah, I was just wondering, how much is a traffic study?
You know, I can't say right off, they vary, and I have not had to do one myself. They're in the thousands of dollars. And, because you're paying a bunch of engineers to spend a lot of time to work these things. It's not just a matter of, well, there's 40 houses, you know. So, cause they gotta look at, how big the lots are and how they're gonna be coming into the road system. There's a lot more than just, the number of houses that go into the whole thing. Houses will dictate trips per day, but beyond that, then the engineers start looking at a whole lot of other things. And so, but I've actually never had to do one of those road studies myself. And, so I don't wanna say, but they're not cheap. And,
So it sounds like the traffic study should be part of the encroachment permit and not based on anything other than what you're trying to get the encroachment permit for.
I can tell you for the state, that's what triggers it. Now, what triggers it here in the county though, is if you intend to subdivide and it's gonna create 10 lots or greater, that's the way it's set up right now. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be triggered by,
So right now, would you agree, we've completely discouraged any kind of subdivision development on county roads? It's
No
all on
question.
state roads
No
because of
question.
this.
yeah, unquestionably.
Right now, if the traffic study they do is based on it's all about the encroachment permit, so the DOT dictates all of that, and it's provided to us. We get for proof of, that it's been done for the DOT. So we're not getting anything additional outside of what they're requiring.
That's on state roads, not on county roads.
We have very few county, I think, I've looked.
That's
I'd have to
because of
go
the
back,
rule.
there may be one since I've been here
That's
that's county
because of
road.
the 10. That's why we want to change it to 40. That way we can encourage development, not just on state roads, but on county roads. Read it out.
That's all I got, thank you. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Tom. Other comments? Are we ready for a vote to, so my motion again on the floor is to change the number from 11 to 40. And let the staff go consult legal, see if that's doable, based on case precedent.
In relation to the impact of the traffic study,
Well,
with that number, is that what you mean? So based on
yeah,
precedent?
yeah. I mean, that's what it's there for, right? I mean, that's why we have the 11 now.
Actually, the development requirements extend quite a bit when you go from 10 to 11. Like your site plan, you have to go through a preliminary plat procedure, construction drawings, all of that stuff
Right.
increases. Because you're
None of that's
clearing-
what should be needed for 40 or less now, right?
So
That's
that
what I'm
means no septic permits, nothing. We don't want any of that for 39 or less.
What do you mean no septic permits?
Right now, we require proof of, you've gotta have proof of water and sewer. If you're over well, any major subdivisions, you have to have proof of water or sewer or well septic, whichever way it's going. And so if it's going up to 30, are you saying we don't need any of that for information for those? Because that's the way, like, would that mean 39 and under is considered minor? Because minor, we were saying you don't have to do that, so they
I
could
think that's where we're
develop,
going.
they could develop 39 lots and clear and grade those with no proof of water, sewer, or,
I'm still not clear on that. When you're saying proof of water and sewer,
they have to provide septic permits for those lots.
but I thought every lot that had a dwelling on it had to provide that information.
No, sir, that's provided at the development stage.
Oh, so you're stating that they have to have a perk test? Is that where you go?
They have to, right now, it's state, they actually have to permit them as the way DES operates. They actually have to permit those septic permits unless it's sewer, and then they provide us with documentation that they have the sewer capacity for that project. And it's actually shown on your development plans, all that's reflected on that. So I'm just trying to clarify, is that changing up to 39 as well, or will that be a graduated thing? What is your thinking on that?
So when does, so we fully understand. So right now, at 11 homes or more being developed, what are they providing you with and when?
So there's a sketch plan that just shows the initial design.
Mhm.
And the complexity of that depends on the size of your development. If you're just doing 11 lots, generally it's just a hand-sketched design, because they're not doing a lot of infrastructure, et cetera. Typically, they're doing no infrastructure, in all honesty. So as that gets larger, your complexity of your sketch plan gets greater. And then you have your preliminary plat stage, which is gonna show actually how each of those lots are laid out. They're gonna provide, if it is on a state road, then they're gonna have to provide their DOT encroachment information. Generally, that's provided as a preliminary. They have to provide the traffic studies and all that, and then DOT will provide preliminary approval based on everything being finished. So we get that, then we have to have, if it is sewer, we have to have approval from whoever the provider is. You have to have approval from all utility providers. And so if it's septic, we have to have approval from DES for each one of those lots, saying that they meet, and that's for 11 or more.
But is
All the
that,
time.
is that when the land is first subdivided and surveyed out, or is that,
Okay, so it's, on a major subdivision, it's done in phases. So you're gonna have your sketch plan, preliminary plat, which includes your construction drawings, so your grading plans, your infrastructure plans, road design, all of that is on those plans, and then you have final plat. So your preliminary plat is just that preliminary. It could change based on, grading and things like that could shift as you go. So then you have your final plat. So they can't actually sell anything off of sell any lots, do anything until final plat stage. Can't get any building permits, et cetera. So all of that information I referenced is provided at the preliminary stage, because we don't want to let them move forward and do all of that work if it's not gonna meet those basic requirements. You've gotta have all of that done before you get, yes, this preliminary is good, you can move forward. So I just wanted to ask where we were defining.
So-
Yeah, what's the county, if the county did not regulate, if the county was not involved in that, what regulatory, they'd still have to go through all those processes, right?
yes,
It's just the county doesn't have to stamp it as, yeah, we agree that all these processes are satisfied for this particular amount.
We don't have to know if they're done or not. We would have no way of knowing, is this, they could do it or they couldn't. They could go then and do 39 lots that do not perk and sell them, and
When you say do not perk, you
meaning
mean,
they can't have a septic.
any lot can have a septic, it's just the type of whether it's an engineered
But-
system.
But that's
or
up to
not.
DES, not us. That's not our, so
Exactly.
we're saying that but you potentially could have something that DES says is not buildable.
Mr. Chairman.
Actually,
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
hold on. Can you contact DES and ask them in South Carolina if they ever had a non-buildable lot due to septic system.
Sure.
Okay. And,
I would also,
Go ahead.
and when we get that answer, I think we need to table this portion until we get that answer.
Two questions. You mentioned DES. Is it the county or is it DES that requires that it be every lot? Used to, it was every third lot.
I'm with you on that, DES requires it. I think
DES is
that's
the
a
one that
bit,
requires every
I
lot.
think that's a bit, a lot. It's a big burden on the property owner at that point,
But
particularly
we're
if
not
you're.
pushing it.
No, we are not. That is a DES requirement, not an us requirement. They're making them test each and every lot, which
And it's-
is very expensive,
And it's my
obviously.
understanding that there's legislation to try to curb that back a little bit.
That's what I've heard, and I'm hoping they return back to what you were suggesting, that every third, because as y'all know, it's, I mean, even an extensive perk test on every lot is very expensive. So if you're doing 20 lots or 200 lots, that's still a large expense. But that is not driven by us, that is driven by DES. They're the
Well,
ones that determine all of that.
And not only that, but you're digging 3 6-foot holes that now could potentially be right in the foundation of where you're trying to put footings, and what causes all those breaks that you see in house.
Then we have all that other issue. Yes, sir.
So second question on with that. So we don't, if it's currently 10 or less, we don't have these controls.
We do, because right now, minor subdivisions are not clearly defined and the process is not clearly defined. That's one of the things that we were talking about, trying to clean up so that you can't, because right now, there's nothing to say that 4 or 12, that they're, because the ordinance just says subdivision. It doesn't say minor or major. That's why we were trying to define the two, so that your average person just splitting 3 lots, he's got 10 acres and he's splitting it into 4 pieces. Well, right now, the way it reads, technically, he's gotta get me encroachment permits for each one and, septic permits for each one. And then, he's gotta either have a land disturbance permit or something from DES saying that he does not need one. That's why that cleaning up that minor is so important, because that is a large expense on just somebody selling a couple of lots, to have to go get the perk tests and do all that. And it's just a laborious task to then have to go to DES and ask for that. And basically what we're doing is DES is providing me an email that says they're not, because the average person's not clearing or grading anything, so it wouldn't trigger a land disturbance, so they're having to provide me an email stating that, so that we're meeting that requirement of the ordinance.
So in workshop,
They have to do.
workshop 1 and workshop 2, which is what we're talking about today as an agenda item, we had mentioned stair stepping for traffic studies. And then we mentioned that we may need to review and move up from 11 or higher when we're talking about private roads and those requirements on private roads with regard to right-of-ways and things like that, as the 2 areas. What I'm hearing you say is that there's also under minor subdivisions some work that still needs to be done. I don't remember really working through that subject in either of those workshops. Is that another workshop that's coming up, or did I just fall asleep through that part?
You actually were the one that changed that on minor subdivisions to, you suggested that instead of a 5-year parcel reset, a 2-year parcel reset.
Okay, so that's kind of what you're talking about
on
then,
minor.
yes, yeah.
And really by defining it and then just changing how we reference later on and reference that those standards apply to a major subdivision instead of just saying subdivision, we'll clear that up, because then it tells me what standard I'm applying to which one. Because right now, because it just says subdivision, as we discussed earlier, subdivision means it covers any time you're splitting. So by just referencing it throughout the ordinance as to which one each thing applies to, that will clear this up.
Did that solve that in that workshop? Do you feel like all those little things were solved?
That issue was solved, yes, sir, because it was just by defining minor and then referring to these stipulations affecting major subdivision rather than just saying subdivision, that fixes that. Then I don't have to hold that person to that standard of bringing the, septic permit for each one and all of those things.
One of the things, just so that everybody understands what it was being talked about just then, is we talked about a reset. Somebody has 100 acres, they build 10 lots. Right now, the reset is 5 years.
There's, right now, it's not, there's nothing. We don't have a mechanism to stop
So-
somebody from just.
Not that a developer would try to get through it, but they could do 10 lots, and then 10 lots, and then 10 lots, and then 10 lots, up to their 100 acres of stuff. And we said, okay, we don't want to penalize the small guy who wants to do the 11th or something like that, or 12th. He's got 100 acres and he does 10 lots. Right now, we're saying he's got to stop at that, or he has to provide some sort of subdivision mechanism.
So, I've got a question. So what we're saying is, right now, as it stands, any subdivision of lots requires a perk test.
Yes, sir, because of how it's referenced later in the ordinance, it just says subdivision. Yes, sir.
So what about the exempted subdivisions, like the 5-acre property?
Those do not, because they're exempt.
Okay,
Family transfers are exempt, and anything over the 5 acres, so they're exempted from how they're reviewed, so those are exempt from having to provide.
so when, even if it's raw, undeveloped land, you gotta do a perk test on it,
Yes, sir. That's-
even without a tent?
Yes, sir. That's one of those, again, I think that penalizes the small person doing whatever they're doing. But I think that can be fixed by us, like, as the ordinance moves forward through, just referencing things as major subdivision versus just using the word subdivision.
So it's us that's requiring that, it's not DES,
In this case, you're correct. Yes, sir.
okay?
Yes, sir.
What are the requirements of DES?
DES doesn't require you to get it until, now, for the development phase, they require that, for a major development. Anything 10 or more for them requires that. But for us, right now, it's anything just because of the way the ordinance reads. But DES will allow you to do it either if it falls into that major category, which for them is 10 or more. Otherwise, you can do it when, you go to pull your building permit. That's typically if you've got a raw lot, and this is where it's a problem because DES is saying, we say you gotta do it today. Well, you may buy that 2 acres of land and not build on it for 10 years. That permit's only good for a year. You've gotta, turn around and get another one. And that's an undue burden on the average person. So that's where I feel like that issue needs to be cleaned up.
So you mentioned 10 in DES, so the trigger is dictated by DES at 10 lots?
No, so
Or it's
there-
dictated by the county at 10 lots?
At 10 lots, you can't go through the local DES office anymore. It's gotta go at the state level. So it changes how all that's processed. It just makes it a more,
And that's
More difficult
dictated by
task to get water
DES,
before.
not the county saying, we have a 10-lot threshold right now, and then the county DES people telling Columbia ours is 10 in this county.
DES across the board, if it's 10 or more, has to go to
Okay.
Columbia. That's just their standard, which is one off from us, but that's their standard. But right now, our standard is anytime you cut something, you're supposed to provide us with a septic permit to go with it because of just how the ordinance reads.
And was that talked about in one of the workshops? We talked about it, that we weren't gonna require that anymore, is that?
That's correct.
Correct.
By cleaning up how we reference the subdivision. All we have to do to fix that issue is instead of it just reading subdivision,
It
let
says
it read
major
major
subdivision.
subdivision. Because then it would go back to
It triggers that 10 or 11 or whatever it
whatever it
is.
is, or the 40, whatever that number is.
And takes it
That's
away
what
from the
triggers-
earlier.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, one other thing, talking about that session, I was thinking in the morning in that workshop 1 that we currently had a 5-year hold and we dropped it to 2.
No, sir, we were discussing it. There is no reset. It was just a suggestion. And so as part of the conversation, you were discussing, from the average person and how that would work out. So you suggested 2, and I mean, it was a
Gotcha.
general consensus that two would get us to where we wanted to be, that it would stop a developer from just moving down the line. That is my only concern with the number, you know, cause if we do that, we still need to make it so that you can't do contiguous over and over and over again, however that looks like. But changing the number would not, I don't think, affect that side of things, because it would just mean that, like, if you said 39 and it major would be 40, so up to 39 you could do every 2 years. Which the concern is, in my opinion, a developer would do that for 39 and then wait 2 years and do 39 more. But the septic issue, just by referring to it as major subdivision, will fix that problem, which would be great for the average property owner. I think that's what we're trying to protect in correcting that. I believe that would be accurate.
So we're gonna stick with 11 or greater.
I second.
Is that
With
the-
regard to something called major or minor,
Yeah.
go ahead and say
Would-
what.
I was just asking, like, on that, would we have like a threshold? So could we change the traffic study threshold? If we leave major and minor like if we left it at 11, would we just change the traffic study threshold? Or would we have 2 levels of minor? I think we can accomplish the same thing whichever direction y'all wanna go, but, I
But
just.
the
was
county
clarifying.
dictates the traffic study, right, at 11?
If it's on a private road, yes, sir. Otherwise, DOT's gonna require it under that encroachment permit. Now, we can reach out to the DOT and ask them what their threshold for a traffic study is, if y'all would like that
He just
clarification.
said.
Is that a
he
private
said
road or
one-
county?
One lot.
Yeah, it's
That's
county.
on a,
You said private, but
It
it's
really-
county also?
It really sounds like what we're really dealing with is private roads and not necessarily development.
Yeah.
With regard to some of this stuff, because DOT is gonna dictate it in some cases. I do think that a traffic study, that if we're requiring a traffic study for 11 homes or 10 homes or whatever, actually 11 homes is our trigger, that 11 homes, I think, is closer to 10 than it is to 30. At what point does that number require a traffic study? And I guess the question becomes, at what point do you or Kyle start going, wow, that's a lot of traffic? Do we need to be paying attention to something else?
that's based on the numbers that are set in the ordinance currently. The trips per day dictate what improvements have to be made, how we classify.
And where is your first trigger for trips per day?
What do you mean?
So I'm trying to figure out, 11
It
doesn't
just
seem right.
determines The trips per day just tells you what label of road it falls under. Is it a minor local? Is it an arterial? Is it a collector? The trips per day determine that. And that just tells you your road design, et cetera, is based on what that road label is.
And the smallest road from a county road is a local minor.
Yes, sir.
And how many trips per day does a local minor hold?
1 to 400, I believe.
Yes. So going
Is that
back,
right?
we're doing traffic studies on private roads?
We do traffic studies on major developments, and major developments typically always include minor roads. So your traffic study is how it affects.
No,
where it comes
private
out.
roads, not minor roads.
Private roads.
We're doing them on private roads.
No, sir, we're doing traffic studies on major developments based on what road they hit.
Okay, what public road they is?
What public road they
Okay.
hit,
Just-
that's what determines
Throughput.
your,
Right.
that's
I
what
was just making sure I
dictates it.
heard that correctly.
Private
Yes,
road
sir.
goes to a
Brett?
county road.
Right.
Yeah, because it's gotta come out somewhere, that's what dictates it.
Doesn't, yeah, say that, the traffic study is what road it goes on to. And there's a traffic study and the trips thing goes by what kind of road it is that you're going on to. That all goes, that all is in the study, you know?
Right.
It's what you're entering into.
I just think that this is, in my opinion, it's a fictitious number that we're throwing out there. I know it's better than what we have, and the reason why is, how is 40 lots subdivided out of one parent parcel, different than 4 sets of 10 lots subdivided out of 4 different parent parcels on the same road. Are y'all following me?
Because you have 10 different you have 4 different access points.
Accessing the same
Then
minor road.
then the subdivision, okay.
Is this an anecdotal
We need a
And
way.
how, let me ask,
that was not likely to happen?
No, I
Not
think
likely
it's
to happen?
possible, I mean, it's,
what,
Let Teresa
what
speak.
Mr. Hank, go
No.
ahead.
Teresa speak for you.
The whole thing is dwellings on parcels of land. So the picture in my head is single-family homes. What about townhomes and what about multifamily units? So you could build vertically and on a small parcel of land, get a bunch of people that might trigger a traffic study. Are we overlooking that? I mean, because I think the assumption is these are all single-family homes, but not really, because we've got other residential dwellings in the county. So are they gonna be falling under the 11 lots? 50 acres, divide it down, multiple people, right? You could get more people that way than if you just did one house per acre. How's that covered?
Somewhere in what we had originally done in 26 and 32 was we mentioned the word single family. And that because everything else was a multifamily type dwelling scenario.
So the
speaking of-
multifamily doesn't cover this? Isn't covered under?
Major subdivisions are, multifamily falls under major subdivisions
Yeah.
currently because it's based on buildable sites as well
Right.
and dwellings. Unless
Have
we
you-
then add a separate ordinance, for multifamily, that kind of thing. We'd have to have a whole, if we want to remove it out of major subdivision, we then have to have a whole separate thing developed for those.
which is probably a good idea. Have you spoke to the roads department lately on where we at on capacity study?
Yes, sir, that's a long, detailed process. I don't think we'll have any time to,
Did they give you a target date?
no, sir, I'll ask again.
Okay.
I don't think that's something we'll have by the time we get to the end of this.
And I have a question on Mr. Haney's point. Mr. Haney made this statement of, okay, we're talking about, here's a subdivision, it's got 40 homes in it. Or, here's a subdivision that has 10, down the road is a subdivision that has 10, down the road farther than that, it's a subdivision that has 20. At what point does the county say, you can't put any more capacity on this road? Is that something that can even legally be done?
So, because then the
No,
definition
sir,
of
it
the
would
road-
just mean that perhaps upgrades are needed to handle the additional capacity. We can't
Yeah.
say you can't use our road. We have to provide access.
And so at that point, under our current codes, is it the last person that says, I want to do 10, and their 10 trigger an over 400 for that minor road?
But 10 isn't gonna trigger a traffic study at this point, so we'll say 11.
11.
If the traffic study dictated that something had to be done, then yes, sir, it would have to be done.
And then is it the county, do they do that, or does that
No, sir.
developer of the
The
11
developer.
homes say, I'll go somewhere else?
The developer has, that's their responsibility, because they're increasing it to that point.
So that
Same way
answers
DOT works.
Mickey's question then.
All right, so it's about 10 after 7, and we've talked a lot about this motion and about the threshold of minor to major subdivisions, but we haven't agreed on any kind of change, so as far as I can tell, it's gonna stay at 11. So I wanna bring forth another motion so we can discuss that one for a little while. We've only got so much time. I think the public is getting the idea how complex this is. We can't even agree on a simple definition for what a major and minor is based on what all we have to do, so we're gonna move to another motion. That is, under the subject of private roads, this is the motion. Any drafted ordinance should not reference SCDOT or ASHTO-based approach to road design standards or requirements as it relates to right-of-ways. Staff is to work within the guidelines voted and approved by the Planning Commission, which was previously forwarded to County Council, and that is a minimum right-of-way width of 20 feet. Other than the topic of right-of-way, staff can bring any observable definitions or procedural conflicts to the planning commission for review and discussion. Does that motion make sense, or was it too long?
No, that makes sense. So I'll second that motion.
All right. Nick
I-
proposed the motion and Mickey seconded.
I do remember in the workshop that we were having, this was one of the things I was adamant about, is we were having the discussion that we have driveways right now, 1 to 3. We have drives up 4 to 10. And then roads, 11 or more. And that we had spent.
But that's the throughput too. That's not, this is talking about how the subdivision designs their interior roads,
Right, on their private roads.
their private roads, how they design them and
And
construct them.
one of the things that we had talked about in this, on this body back when, and we sent to council, was saying that on the road, that we were gonna remove the right-of-way. And we were gonna make it 20 feet of right-of-way, and we were gonna remove that extra 15 feet on either side. And then in the workshop, we said that we would let an engineer decide based on DOT or ASHTO rules.
Well, right now, I think it's 32 feet.
No,
20.
the suggested from.
Did we
the
already
workshop-
change it to 20?
The suggested.
But
from
we didn't
workshop.
pass it through council, right? Right now, as it stands, it's still 32.
Oh, right now it's ordinance.
It's 50. Right now, it's 50.
It's still 50?
Yes.
I thought
And
we
but
got
we
down to
sent to
32.
council something that said 20.
I thought we sent them a 32 and then,
I'm
because
not
that was a
sure.
compromise.
I've slept since then, so.
What-
And then now we want to reduce it to 20 based on fire code.
Fire codes, because fire codes is the only thing that's regulating private roads.
What's in your suggested updates that went before
That was
the
20.
commission? That was 20.
Right,
Yes,
but I
sir.
think it's 32 right now.
No, sir, it's 50.
No.
That's-
Still 50?
Yes, sir.
Oh, we changed
It's
that.
50, and we sent it to, as 20 as road surface. And in the workshop, it was suggested that we do a DOT standard or a ASHTO standard.
With a minimum of 20.
But the ASHTO standard is a minimum of 50, and the DOT standard is a minimum of 66.
Britt,
Okay, DOT does not and will not regulate private roads, period. End of discussion. Why are we? If a developer wants to develop 40 houses and he wants to put in a stupid road, he's not going to sell any lots. That's called free market, and that's how things get figured out. If they want to do something stupid like happened down the river where the lady died and they got a road they can't even drive a fire truck down, I'm sorry, that's bad. But insurance doesn't cover that house because you can't get a fire truck down there. Why are we going through all these hoops and why are we going through all these things?
well, that's the purpose of this motion is to,
That's what I'm saying.
That's that.
We need to just.
we don't need to regulate subdivision
We
interior roads.
we don't need to say the 20 feet. We could take private roads out of it and just put it aside and let them. It's not that funny. Why?
No,
I mean, you're just saying 20 feet, you got all the other parameters that go with it. If
we're
somebody
saying 20
doesn't,
feet based on the fire code.
okay, so you have, there are other regulations.
I
That,
agree,
that guy has to, so why are we going through all these hoops?
I agree, we could take the 20 feet out, but I'm just saying, right now, we're suggesting going beyond the 20 feet as a minimum.
I'm suggesting take it out, period. That's just what I'm suggesting anyway.
The standard we were suggesting is not a minimum of 66. It was not DOT's minimum. It was their road standard manual that is based on project specific. So it doesn't have a minimum in that manual. It's not 66. That manual is project specific.
And that's what I'm saying.
DOTs or the ASHTOs?
I'm sorry, sir?
The DOT or the ASHTO?
The DOT.
You'll
And
never
we
get
weren't
to
saying
20 feet
ASHTO.
in those, the engineer will never engineer the road to 20 feet in
No,
those, based on those code requirements.
nor
If
the,
we impose those code requirements, the road widths are not gonna be 20 feet, they're gonna be 30, 40, 50,
But maybe that's
66
what's-
feet.
But that may be what's required for that subdivision when they design it.
It's not required if we don't require it.
No, sir, what I'm saying is the layout of that subdivision may require it. That was the point that I'm making, the topography, et cetera, requires it. I'm
So-
not saying we would.
The subdivision, if it requires it, whether we say anything about it or not. So we shouldn't say anything about it.
Well, actually,
And let the subdivision say if it needs it or not needs it. I mean, that's the way it's been prior to 2008.
right, prior to 2008, and it worked well for us, is we had public roads. There were state roads and county roads. They had their standards. Private roads did not have the standards, and they really filled in the gap where public roads were not feasible. If we push through this ordinance, you're gonna see landscapes bulldozed down just to put a good road in. Private roads are the backup for roads that cannot conform to public road standards. It's that simple. Now, why did we put in the 20-foot for International Fire Code? It gives the bare minimum required for International Fire Codes to know that that road is stable for holding that fire truck. That's it. The 13.5-foot clearance, it's enough clearance so that fire truck can go through there. That's their bare minimum. This is the, and I think we're looking at this the wrong way. We're trying to make everything the same, but a lot of the state roads are designed for speed. Well, if I'm designing a subdivision, what do I want to do to slow things down? I want to put in curves. I want to slow down the traffic. I don't want somebody running 45 miles an hour in a close residential housing development. So I want to make sure that there's things in there. I just cannot see us not giving an avenue for all the different varieties of road conditions and land conditions in the county.
Well, along that line, I would say that we either adopt what you just said as far as taking all that out, or two, go specifically with what we sent to council originally with regard to 26.
20.
What's that?
20.
With
20.
regard, no, with regard to,
Oh,
with
chapter
regard to
20.
chapter 26, what we sent to council in December after much discussion is
All right.
pretty much what this says.
So
So I would agree with
I want to
this.
give one of the members of the public a chance to talk again. Y'all are okay with that? Mr. Markovich has a few things to say on this
I
matter.
second that.
I'll say
That's the
aye.
motion. Mickey seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Tom, you may approach.
Thank you. Very simply, to me, the solution to your problem is just this. Just make get the South Carolina State Fire Code a requirement to have a subdivision approved, period. Don't worry about the road in there, because that puts the onus on that developer to make sure that his engineers are gonna go into the South Carolina Fire Code and make sure that those roads meet whatever is there for that particular thing. Don't worry about the road. Just say that the
Well, they're
South
probably
Carolina.
also going to look at SCDOT and ASHTO at some point. I mean, they don't have to. They're not going to require it, but they may have to.
They will,
Because they're
because their
engineers.
insurance company is gonna say, you better,
Exactly.
But you won't have to worry about private roads, because if the state fire marshal is gonna say it either is approved or it isn't. So all you have to do is have something that says this subdivision has to be approved by state fire marshal, period. That's it. And the roads are automatically taken care of. Just my thought. Thank you.
Britt,
I make a motion and agree to that. And
motion to amend.
a motion to amend and just make it has to be fire marshal approved, period. And leave it at that.
And you're saying 11 or more, just fire marshal approved, and all other, nothing else about private roads beyond that?
Right.
I'll second.
Because by that point, the engineers are taking over and doing the job.
Can we, point of order, where are we on this?
I don't know.
Because I think
Do we
from the
have a
original
motion?
workshop, this kind of pulls that back a little bit.
It does, it
Scales
walks
that
the
back.
workshop back significantly.
So,
And this is a completely new venture, just to say eliminate private roads. By saying engineers need to follow.
My question though is
International fire
is that outside the scope of what we're trying to do? Should we just stick to walking back and not having them do the should we just stick with what we already have that we were going to put in the ordinance? And then maybe later we can come back and see if we want to deregulate some more.
so
Nikki
I,
had really brought the original
Try to
ordinance
keep it
back,
simple.
the ordinance, it was understandable to me, so my initial thought is that we go with what was originally sent, just because we researched it for so long and went through it.
At least that part. I mean, there's other parts that we need to work on.
Right.
and within that, it does have item 6, compliant with all current fire regulation and codes under the private roads. It would simplify this, and really we're gonna run out of time, and you got a motion on the floor, right?
I do.
So right now, this walks this back to following the original rules that we put in place on 26.
Correct. For private roads.
Can I amend your motion to accept 26 as written,
As we submitted,
as we submitted, with the exception of any, let's accept 26 as written. Send it up to council for approval. That way we have a document to work off of for any additional changes.
What about 32?
Well, we haven't got into 32 yet. I'm just doing
No,
26.
we sent council 26 and 32.
Right, but right now, we're just talking about 26, to get their approval to work off of 26.
Because 32 is going to require some more changes, right?
Correct.
We can't send that to them like it is. I'll second that.
Okay.
so right now what we're doing, we're talking about, because we need to get
Wait a
this
minute, didn't we also, weren't we moving some stuff out of 26 to 32 in that change, in that series of changes? Or were we just changing 26 in place?
I'm not following you.
So, when we went through all this a few months ago,
Mhm.
26, chapter 26 and chapter 32, did we not agree on movement of some of 26 to 32?
No, it was 32 to 38,
Okay.
if I recall correctly. I think 26 has nothing but road design standards in
If
it.
because if we're moving anything out of 26 to 32, then we can't send them just 26.
Correct.
It was discussed in the workshop of moving road standards to,
I agree, it was discussed in the workshop, but the
That's-
question is, before that, did we move anything out? Were we moving anything out of 26? I don't think we were, but I'm just asking the question, because if we were, we can't send it to the council for approval.
No, I think everything has been moved out of 26. It's intact, only dealing with roads in Oconee County.
Wait a minute, I want to ask that question again. In our revision that we sent to council, are we moving anything out of 26? Or are we just revising 26 in place? Because if we're moving something out of it, then we have to send them
Okay, right
what we're
here,
moving it to
right here,
as
Dale,
well.
right here on 26.3 on public roads, that's being moved to 32.
Right.
Remember when we
That's
did
my
this?
concern.
Oh, that's right, but, so you're wanting to send 26 and 32?
We have to, if you're moving stuff from 26 to 32,
Okay,
right?
so that opens discussion on 32.
We're not there yet. We hadn't covered that in the workshop.
All right.
Mr. Adams have a motion on the floor. Don't you have a motion on the floor?
So I want to keep the motion at the original motion
Okay.
to just direct staff not to beef up the private road standards before we move it over to 32, not to beef it up with all these codes. That's my motion.
All right, I rescind my motion.
I also do.
Okay. So do we have any more discussion on this motion before we vote on it?
No.
Teresa, you were trying to say something and I interrupted you rudely. I
No,
apologize.
I thought Mr. Adams had a motion on the floor that's all.
He did, he
And
pulled
you
it,
said it, yeah.
he pulled it back. All right, so we have one motion on the floor about not putting specific codes in chapter 26. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. All right. So, I guess now we're to the point of, I've run out of controversial issues to discuss. I'm sure there's plenty more. So, do we want to go into the workshop document and look through it and see if we have any comments or questions about other issues? And-
Absolutely.
And I'm also, I can read your face. If you have any comments, staff, please feel free to bring them forward. I know you've got concerns. You're looking at this from a little bit different perspective than we are, and that's okay. That's nothing personal.
I have
So-
to figure out how to enforce the ordinance, and sometimes I feel like we're leaving gaps, but, yes, sir. And I also am concerned about the
Well,
approach.
in some case, there's gonna be nothing to enforce by the county. It's enforceable by capitalism.
I
The
get some
selling of
that.
the
Yes, sir.
lots dictates
I'm
just exactly
saying-
what Britt said.
Some of the design, some of that, like we have a lot of gaps currently we're trying to close up, and I'm concerned we're gonna be leaving some of those. And I'm also concerned with the timing of this by if we have to discuss in this type of forum what we're going over in workshops, then that does not allow time for the drafting of, if we're gonna do all of those to be discussed before anything can be drafted. My concern is getting that draft done into y'all in a timely manner. So that is my concern, and maybe that means I request the planning commission to address the topics a little bit differently in the workshops, because had I gone and drafted all of this information based on this, it would have been a complete waste of my time, because we've backed up 2/3 of what we've discussed, and I don't want, we're all working with limited time, so I don't wanna draft something that we're gonna walk in here and y'all gonna throw it all out and we start over again.
Mr. Chairman? Back when we had originally sent chapters 26 and 32 to council and for them to vote on, and they had not voted on it at the time, what if we instructed staff that to work off of 26 and 32 and come to the workshops with, here's the gaps that need to be filled in based off of those two documents that we've already voted through to council, rather
I
than,
thought that's what we were doing.
That is what we're doing.
I did, but there's a whole lot of other stuff in here that we're talking about walking back, so it's really not what we were doing. We weren't
Well, I
working
think
off
what
of
she
those.
said was, what we had proposed had gaps based on what they saw. I mean, they had the, quite honest, they had the desire to regulate a little more than we do,
Gotcha.
and in subdivision realm,
I think,
and that's okay. I mean,
I'm looking for clarification, and I think that the whole point was to provide additional regulations so that we would have 4 major subdivisions, and I thought that was the intent of part of the ordinance review. So that is what I've been operating under, and if that's not accurate, then I need to know the intent.
well, I think the part we're trying to regulate is not the interior of the subdivision, it's how the subdivision impacts the county, right? How the subdivision impacts the roads they throughput on, how the subdivision impacts sewer loading, how the subdivision impacts
So-
water loading.
You're not worried about any interior design at all? Like
That's up to the subdivision,
density,
subdivider.
open space, runoff, none of that, pervious versus impervious, all that stuff?
We already have stuff in place that regulates that in part. And there's already, I mean, it's like Britt said, the capitalistic process regulates that, self-regulates that as well. And we do have minimum standards that we want to introduce, like the 20 feet and the fire code piece. But we don't want to overregulate the private road
So
aspect.
we're lowering regulations in that sense.
We're,
In some respects, yeah.
We are, yes, sir. Based on my conversation with the developer, if they said this is what you're doing now, and this is what you're proposing, it's less regulation versus.
in some areas,
In
and I
some
think,
areas.
For a developer, yes, sir.
I-
Across the board, it is less regulations. If you reduce your right of way, that's less regulations across the board for a developer. So that's what I'm saying. And if that's the intent across the board, then I need to know that. And I feel like right now, I'm working with what council's intent was, what I was proposed, and then working with y'all, and I'm trying to marry the two. And I think there's just some confusion on my part as to where that meets. What I am asking is, in the workshops, if this is the way, if we're gonna come back here and take out everything we discussed in the workshop, then I would ask that everybody approach the workshop in, don't, be very clear in that, because we won't have time to keep, like, we're gonna run out of time. We won't be able to discuss all the 6 next workshops in an open forum like this. So we've got to really rein it in. Obviously, we're not voting on language in a workshop, but I'm just asking for very clear, defined direction so that it's not a waste of your time or anybody else's, because we're just running out of time.
And that's, all that's perfectly fair and legitimate. We hear what you're saying.
Yep.
And
so, we voted on the scope up here. And this is a good example of going outside of that scope,
What is
of what happened today.
discussing the workshop agenda, you mean?
Well, how the agenda that you've created, and we talked about how it did not align with our scope. So you asked for direction. I think the direction would be, go back to the original scope we gave you, throw out the RV parks, the mobile home parks, because we're not gonna have time, and stick solely with the scope, so we can get this completed.
The only thing that was added, y'all have already made changes to the RV park. It's in your stack.
That is
That's
correct,
not
but
even
that's
done.
not part of,
Yes, sir, if you'll let me finish. What I'm saying is y'all have already made changes to that. So listing it on that, you can say, yep, that looks good, put a check mark and we roll on. And by saying the manufactured home parks, I believe we had discussed that last time, saying that we probably won't have time for that. So let's leave room in the ordinance for where it can go and earmark it for 2027 or whatever. I thought that was the way we had approached everything, is we're gonna run into topics that are gonna require a lot more time than we have. But we need to earmark places in the ordinance for that to go. That was what we had discussed before. So based on what you're telling me is, the agendas that y'all approved previously were outside the scope, but those agendas are based on what's in that scope of work that you approved. So I'm asking, what is it that y'all want at this moment?
now, when you say the agenda, what agenda are you?
The workshop agendas are based on the scope of work that y'all approved.
Yes, they were very vague, but within our scope, it was stated that we're supposed to stay within chapter 26 and chapter 32,
And
the
we-
changes,
And we did.
and look upon those. No, this is a total rewrite.
Of chapters 26,
Of
32, and
26.
38. Everything that's on those agendas fall within 26,
They
32,
fall
38.
within, but it's a rewrite, is what I'm stating.
Well, and-
So we're having to rehash everything that we've hashed out over 2 years because we want to rewrite 26 and 32 to a whole different,
And maybe that's where the
parameters.
clarification needs to come in. What we had voted on here was to work off of the platform and foundation of 26 and 32 that we've already rewritten.
Which we did in the workshop. We sat with those, and as we were discussing things, we said.
I'm gonna
"No,
actually
that's
say,
this."
no, that's not what we did. That's not what we did in workshop 2 at all. What we did in workshop 2 is we came in and Kyle presented his chapter 26 and said, we're gonna work off of his document, not what we had submitted to council. And then you said, okay, we'll work off both of them then. But but that's not what we had been instructed up here. We were gonna work off of what we had submitted and worked a couple of years on.
He made suggestions.
He worked off his red line document.
Yes, sir.
We didn't work
had-
off our document.
We had both laying there and looking back and forth between the two.
We
to
did,
figure out what
but it was
worked.
very clear that it was outside the agenda. What our instruction was before the workshops were created was work off of 26 and work off of 32 that we had created because we needed to get to 38. And when we got into the workshop, we worked off of Kyle's red line document off of the original current ordinance, not what we had worked all that time to redo. So when we were looking at the agenda, we need to go back, as Mr. Haney said, and all of these workshops need to be based off of what we have already come to as a foundation
Then,
for,
when we are in the room, we say, what you've already done checks that box. What you've already done checks that box. That's how you approach it. If you don't want to hear anybody else's suggestions outside of that, then you have the right as the planning commission to say so in that meeting. So you can say, no, we don't want to, that's not what we're discussing. We don't want to discuss that. The language, and that's the direction I'm asking for. If that's the language you want to work from, say. And I believe that came up because the minimum right-of-way width said, we're not changing that, that's what we're working from. So literally, I was like, okay, that's what we're working from. And my report says that was definitively decided, the 20-foot right-of-way, that was the direction I was to take.
and
we're
maybe
supporting what
I'm
you're
not
doing.
able to read this clearly, and that would be my fault, but a lot of it does say DOT in there, a lot of it does say ASHTO in there as far as,
There's separate things that say those are not, some of that needed further research. It wasn't a group decision that's the direction we should take. So there was varying levels to that. There was only a small portion that was very clearly defined as this is the path forward.
and I think now you have a
That's the
directive
dividing-
as a group of body that was able to vote that back at the planning commission side that says 26 as we've discussed it is where we feel very confident and not with following public road standards on private roads.
So that's how you so choose, and that's how we'll move forward. But all of these things are interrelated, so it still has to stay, because those things in 26 are gonna come up in other, because of how it relates to other things and how things are defined, because that was something we're working towards, is trying to clean up definitions as they apply from 26 to 32 to 38, so that everybody knows what they're working with. So that would be why I would suggest not sending it to council yet, because we wanna make sure all the definitions match. And I think we should have that opportunity before it goes, so that would be
All right,
a
and
concern.
there hasn't been any, well, I think there was a motion, but we killed it, right?
It-
So
that
we're not
one
sending
died.
anything to council right yet,
But that's another one
Right
of
now,
those
we're-
things that would come up.
right? So I think, obviously, we've got good discussion, and need not,
Mr.
just remember, just all keep it respectful. I think everybody is, and so right now, we did pass the motion to pull the code stuff out, and that's where we're headed on that.
As one statement, you know what? If we don't make that deadline, so be it. I'm not gonna put extra pressure on people on a deadline. If that deadline has to be pushed back, then it gets pushed back. And that's, you know what? And that's that. we're not gonna try to cram this thing in and get it done instead of just, we're gonna do it right. And when it's done, and that's that. And if people don't wanna do it that way, I don't even wanna be involved in it then, because we're just gonna push something through that's not gonna be right.
Well, we'll be deliberate. I mean, that's why we're having this discussion. It's a tough discussion.
It is.
I mean, if it was easy, everybody else would have already fixed it. And that's where we are, and council's got our back. And if at some point we need to bump the moratorium, we can discuss that with council, if we're not where we think we need to be. But I think we need to continue with our current schedule. We need to have these good discussions in the workshop. We have a planning commission meeting following each workshop where we can have, if there's something we don't like, we can give you that extra feedback. If there's something we do like, you can get that affirmation. I don't think this is atypical of how a project goes. You have people disagreeing on stuff and we hash it out. It's okay.
I am all
And we,
for
we
that.
appreciate all that you've done. Obviously, you've done a lot of work to try to get everything, down on paper. And, we appreciate your willingness to work. I mean, compromise is gonna be part of it, so we appreciate that.
So,
And we're gonna have to do some compromising too.
so which item should we be discussing tonight?
Workshop 1 and 2.
All of it?
Yes, sir, because we need to, we can't rehash this again next meeting. We gotta work through this to get ready for the next one, which is, we actually will have 2 before the next meeting.
So research
2 sets
required,
of workshops, so 4 workshops.
does that need to be part of the discussion, research required? Do you have this in a form you could put up on our screen and sort by,
Which one, which,
the workshop? Can you put all of the agreed in workshops direction up first?
I don't have it split by, I have it just, the same thing you've got is what I've got.
Oh, okay.
I don't have it broke down quite. You're asking for just the agreed upon list, is that?
So we
what
can go
you're
through it
referring
and
to?
sort through it first and then.
I believe if you look on
Mr.
the,
Chairman.
the last
Move
page
faster.
of each one, it's got the consolidated working directions. I think that's gonna give you what you're, look at that and see if that's what you're talking about.
Yes, the section 7, 8, and 9 on each workshop, that's probably what you need to be looking through.
Yeah, cause those were,
That might be less confusing.
there was a lot there that was not definitive, so I can put that on the screen if that would be helpful.
Yes. Let's hit these key items.
Give me 1
All right.
second and I'll.
Teresa had a good example. One of them in 8, matters not yet decided whether single-family and multifamily projects require separate threshold structures.
So, that was the point, there was a lot there that is not decided, it was more of the, it's broken down by that, so what I would ask is after every workshop, when you look at this, if there's a discrepancy from what you thought it was gonna be, I need to be drafting as soon as those workshops are complete, so I would ask, I sent all of those to all of you after the workshops. If you see something on that list that, wait, I don't remember that right, I don't remember it that way, then I need to know that, because my notes could be inaccurate, and I need y'all to, because I don't wanna draft it, and it's not how you remembered what we discussed. So, I ask when you get these, if you would look at that and say, yay or nay, this looks like, this matches up to what we talked about. So at least I can be drafting while, and know I'm following the right direction. Because otherwise, if we get to the end and we've got 4 to talk about next month, 3 hours surely won't be enough, so just to try to figure out a way to kind of expedite some of that.
Quite honestly, the most difficult workshops were these first 2. These were
These
the
are
ones that were
tedious.
gonna set the direction and the tone.
Well, once we decide some of those things, I think it'll clear up some of the
Yeah.
other things.
That's right.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we go line by line down through 7 and 8 and 9.
For workshop 1 or 2,
Uh,
since we've got
Workshop
45
1
minutes.
first. So let's
Okay.
run through it. Well, actually, we took care of workshop 1, correct?
Not really.
Is there anything out there?
Workshop 1 is, and then, on page 12 of workshop 2, number 10 is the consolidated work.
Let me ask the staff, what would be the most effective way for us to help you?
Confirm the consolidated yes that we're working forward on.
Section 7,
Let's do 7 in number, it's number 7 in, workshop 1 and number 10 in workshop 2. Then I know for sure, these are good, because if we're having to debate the others, we're not gonna have time to debate those tonight, and at least I can be working on together. Would y'all agree to that?
we all agree to that?
Yes.
So 7 in workshop 1 is the same as 10 in workshop 2?
Yes, sir, it's just a number of things that, number of sections from one workshop 2.
All right, who wants to lead this? You wanna lead this discussion, staff?
I can,
Section 7?
So, a coordinated major minor subdivision definition structure. What we were referring to was having the word subdivision defined like we do, because that matches state law. And then under that, having major subdivision and minor subdivision together all in one place, because right now, minor subdivision is separate, and it should fall under that kind of as a subsidiary of subdivision, so you know when you look at it, what each one is. So that was literally just placement of putting those definitions together.
Okay.
Okay.
Unless the planning commission objects, we'll consider it tacit approval.
Okay, and then, now, all of this will get written, and you'll still have full review and,
Sure.
you know, but this will let me get started, and then I can produce for you what we've already got drafted before the next meeting as well. So a 10-lot minor subdivision limit that it includes the remainder parcel. That was, the reason we set that specifically was for like a parent parcel reset. It needs to say specifically that it included that remainder parcel. So did we, it says 10 lot, but did we decide to stay at the 11 lot?
Yep.
We did, okay. So are y'all good with that?
We still made
clarifying
it,
that?
so we're still where we are.
Okay.
We've
That-
heard many
some
sides of
that
the
other falls
story,
in
so.
the other stuff, so, all right, so exclusion of subdivisions requiring new public or private roads for minor status. So if they're putting in a new road, do we wanna allow, let me back up. Can we specifically state that? Right now, 10 lots, does it typically have to have a new road? It could technically be a new drive. Can y'all elaborate on this with me?
So are you counting encroachment permits, or are you just counting?
No, sir, I'm not counting an encroachment permit, because we're counting that as literally a drive onto something.
So
What
you're-
I'm referring to is a whole new road. If they're building a new road. So say we've got a parcel that it's 100 acres using one private drive. And so by adding 10 lots to that, it's gonna cause it to go to a private road standard, forgive me,
So,
private road standard. So the question is, will we allow any roads to be built under a minor subdivision? Because those don't get as much of a review. You don't have to meet those same requirements. That would be the question. So if it's, yes, sir.
We just made the requirement, didn't we? We just said it had to be 20 feet and it had to be fire marshal approved. End of dis-
I feel like by reducing it to the 20 feet, that takes away the onerous task to anyone.
Correct.
So
So if we're putting that in, then we agree with this, correct?
I would think so, yes, sir. That would be a question for y'all.
Well, I'm just saying, if we go keep agreeing with things, then we're just moving on, correct?
What are we excluding? Requiring new
What?
public roads?
We were saying that if a minor subdivision, technically it's a minor subdivision, but it requires installing a new road, then it wouldn't be classified as a minor subdivision. But we just said by changing the road standards, if we change the road standards to, as we discussed, then this could go either way. That would be up, which do y'all wanna do? Can a minor subdivision build a new road? Or does building a new road trigger it to a major subdivision? What would be y'all's opinion?
Building the road shouldn't trigger it to,
I agree. It doesn't it shouldn't trigger, if you're building the road into a 6-lot subdivision, it shouldn't trigger it into it being a major subdivision, right? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, sir, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, it should not trigger it into
Okay.
being a major subdivision.
All right, got it. Contiguous parcel and anti-circumvention language. What that references is, if I've got 2 parcels side by side, and I'm developing 10 here and 10 here.
Yeah, we like
That's-
that. We like that. We want that.
To not allow the contiguous part, okay, got that. And then the, anti-circumvention language is to prevent somebody from literally doing 10, 10, 10, 10, 10 side by side. That's what the anti-circumvention is referencing.
Correct,
That's the
key
area,
there.
that's the area discussion. Now you're gonna get to the time discussion next.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. The next would be, a 2-year parent parcel reset, and that's tied to the parcel rather than the ownership of the parcel, because otherwise they could just keep changing hands. So this would be tied to the parcel itself, and the 2-year time limit would there's enough public information available to staff that that's easy to, substantiate a 2-year time limit. And that it's all been under what happened with that parcel in the last 2 years. That's all available.
You wouldn't have a developer saying LLC 1 for the first 10 and LLC 2 for the second 10, and they just keep plowing the road down.
This would prevent that from being able to happen.
How would it prevent it?
It causes, if somebody had 100 acres and they wanted to give some to their grandkids or whatever, or they wanted to build a subdivision, they would build 10 and it's,
I think Mickey understands that part. I think what he's really asking is, how much power are we gonna give the planning director to make the interpretation of LLC 1, LLC 2 are under the same owner, and
I'm
how
not.
can they decide
But
that?
this way, I'm not making that determination. That's why we want it tied to the parcel, not to the ownership. And I don't have to figure out, is this
Well, that's how you do
LLC
it,
the same
Mickey.
as this
It's tied to the
LLC, is
parcel.
the same as that? I think that becomes something that staff, I think that's a task that we can't take on.
Right.
By tying it to the parcel itself, I can easily access plat records that are publicly available. That tax shows us specifically what has happened. I'm not having to chase down stuff.
And
That is
you've
publicly
actually
available.
implemented this practice where you were before, right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
And
sir.
it worked.
It worked. Because of it being tied, I think tying it to the ownership would be very difficult, and I think we would run into a lot of problems trying to do that because of LLCs.
That's your
and
question,
stuff like
Mickey?
Yes, that answered my question.
Okay.
that. Are y'all okay with it tied to the ownership? Okay. That's ties into that public record-based administrative determinations. I can do that based on all information publicly available. That's what that's referenced.
So how would you, so you have to go in and search every time a request comes into the
Yes, sir,
subdivision?
which in all honesty, I'm having to do now anyway, because I've gotta know where they're starting at to what they're changing to. So I'm pulling the existing plat typically when I review a new plat every time.
So how would the buyer know that this land cannot be subdivided for
2 years?
years?
Typically, that information is provided when that survey is reviewed and approved, the initial one, then they're told that you can't subdivide again for 10 years. 2 years, excuse me, 2 years. I'm getting my numbers mixed up, but for 2 years.
So is that gonna be on the plat?
No, sir, because that's a role, I don't think it should be on the plat, I think it, because I don't think it should be on the plat, that would be notified at the time of approval. Every plat that's reviewed right now, even if it's exempt, comes through and they get an email through CitizenServe that says your plat is exempt from review, but it must be stamped by the planning department prior to recording. So, or if they get one that your plat is reviewed and approved, bring in after your fees are paid, bring it in, we'll stamp it, approved.
I'm just-
So an additional statement would be provided at that point saying X, that it can't be split for another 2 years.
I would just hate for somebody to go in and buy a property and pay for the survey and split it out, and then go to file that survey and realize that, hey, this land cannot be subdivided. In that situation, how are we gonna handle that? Because there is a survey.
That means the survey's not approved until the 2-year mark, and it resets,
How can you not approve a survey?
because it doesn't meet the county ordinance. I have to review plats now, and either they meet or they don't, and if it doesn't meet, then I deny the plat.
Is that how y'all did it in Georgia?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Like that's how we do it now. If I have one that comes in, trying to think of an example of one, they wanted to split a lot within a subdivision. It was a major subdivision already. They wanted to split the lot in half. It was, we'll say lot 21, and they wanted to divide lot 21 into 21A and 21B. I denied the plat because it would be adding to a major subdivision, so it would have to go through the major subdivision process, and they didn't wanna do that. So I had to deny it based on that part of the ordinance. So this would apply in the same way.
Okay, how about this? How about if you got somebody that owns 100 acres? They're splitting it off into 10-acre mini subdivisions to sell off to different developers. That's the 100 acres is the parent plot. Only one developer can develop every 2 years.
Well, after 2 years, those parcels then become their own parent parcel. So the parent parcel
Okay.
reestablishes every 2 years. So in your example, so you'd have 100 acres that's now been split into 10-acre tracts.
Right.
So 2 years from now, they can split those 10-acre tracts into 10 again with no issue, because it's allowed for the reset.
How are we gonna get about the state law for if those 10-acre tracts were split into 5 acres each?
Those are exempt. So
So,
if they're more than 5, they're exempt already.
right.
But those are exempt from some of our requirements already now. Like what were we talking about earlier, the septic requirements and those are exempt now.
And our family land transfers
Yes,
exempt
sir.
as well.
Those are exempt as well. And we can specifically state that so that there's no, confusion, so reference back to, would y'all,
So the design is really to try to keep the developer from going around the rules.
yes, sir, that's really the whole point. And you end up with all these little tiny ones that don't get the proper review that they should. Maybe that should have that traffic study, that is now not gonna do one because they're chopping it into little pieces. So, would I be okay in adding specifically to that, anti-circumvention language, that this does not specifically apply to, family land transfers and the, other exempt 5 acres or more parcels? That way it ties that all together. Would that be acceptable? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I think we're on graduated residential, commercial, and industrial performance tiers.
I think the conversation was that we need them, but there was no, if you look down in the next one, we were not decided on what those thresholds are. So would you say that, we said earlier that the industrial stuff needed to be tagged for 2027.
Yes.
Would you wanna basically tag that statement for 2027 review when we do commercial development?
I think so.
Where are we at?
Now, do we have anything
I think
for
it's outside the
residential
scope of
commercial?
residential.
Say again, I'm sorry?
Do we have anything for residential commercial, like for apartments?
That's qualified as multifamily. And that qualifies under, the way we define it now, it falls under a major subdivision. So any standards that apply to a major subdivision apply to multifamily, be that townhomes, apartments, condos, those all fall under that. Are we ready to move on?
Yep.
Mandatory comprehensive impact studies for PDDs.
Agreed.
We good with that?
I'm drawing a blank. What's PDD?
The plan development, basically the plan development where they come in and say, we wanna do this, this, and this, and it has to go before the board, they have to have an approved narrative. We
It's
do have some minimum requirements.
It's something outside of our current ordinance that the developer wants to do. They say, we want to go outside the scope, here's what all we want to do.
Right,
We
a
have
good
a-
example would have been,
The Nuri project
The
or the
Nuri
Key
project.
River project was
Yeah, you
outside
have-
the scope of what was
Right.
allowed in the ordinance. And so this is saying that they need to have an impact study if they're wanting to go outside of the normal
Absolutely.
review, outside of the normal
absolutely
ability.
need to.
Because that would also be a rezoning if they're gonna do a PDD, so all of that would come up. But, I think our current requirements are just like a 5 acre tract and a 15% open space is what our current requirements are for PDD. But outside of that, it's all up to them. So we've got that. Minimum PDD standards with continued public and legislative review. I believe what we're talking about will still apply for that. We would continue with the minimum and if, that would be reviewed again when we get to chapter 38, because that falls under that zoning class, PDD does, so further review may happen there. Interim special exception treatment for data centers.
It's another 2027 item, I think. It's outside the scope of what we're trying to do here.
Can I state what I meant by that, and then
Sure.
I'll tag this as 2027. All I was saying was, we talked about adding a line to the, zoning matrix for general use. And just add a line to that saying that data centers require a special exception permit. No other work would be done under that at this time. It's just that if somebody tried to come in and do something, it would give an additional level of review.
We currently have that for cell towers and something else, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Cell towers and what?
I'd have to go back and look at the list of special exception. There's a few various things that require additional, I wanna say some, not assisted living, but some types of group homes do, those kind of things require special exception.
Strip clubs, cell towers, and something else.
But it's not a definitive ordinance because I don't think we have the time nor the capabilities
Right.
at this moment to do that. So that was what that was in reference to.
Okay, so we're moving that one out.
Formal enforcement of the major subdivision sketch plan process, that's more of a statement rather than a change to the ordinance. It has been, enforced somewhat haphazardly in the past, but requiring a, sketch plan review. So that would be enforced, and it was more, that was a statement than a change.
Agreed.
It was asked if we did a detailed lot by lot review for buildability. Yes, we do. We look at, to make sure that once they meet all those requirements as far as setbacks, that there's still enough building pocket to actually do something with. But that's what those lot by lot reviews are as part of the plat reviews.
And this is for major and minor?
Yes, sir, technically, because we look at a lot by lot review of any plat that's submitted.
So what happens if someone wants to divide off a section that is not buildable? Is it denied?
No, sir, it depends on what you're doing with it. If it meets the other requirements, then no, sir, it's not. What, I would say this falls more into that you end up with something by the time, if it's a septic lot and the shape of that lot and once, DES says this is where it's got to go, you end up with a box that's 20 by 20. Bringing that to the attention of the developer and saying, I don't think there's enough building space here.
But you're
That's
not
what I'm
denying
talking
it,
about.
you're just alerting them that, hey,
This is a problem.
this is a problem.
Yes, sir. That's really what, I mean, we do lot by lot review now. So that's not anything new.
So you're saying we do not deny any that show up that are not buildable?
If they meet the ordinance, they get approved.
Okay.
So, this was a request, classification, specific application checklists after the ordinance adoption. That would be a deliverable once everything's approved and done, so
All
that
right.
there's just a
Explain that
stamp.
in detail, because I'm not sure what we're talking about there.
That was something that, okay,
That zoning classification or what?
no, sir, what I was saying is, if somebody's coming in for a minor subdivision, there's a basic checklist they have to follow. If somebody's coming in for a major
Classification
subdivision.
specific with respect to subdivision type.
Yes, sir.
Major or
What
minor.
they're doing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Something, just a generic checklist to work off of. Those
Absolutely.
will be provided after everything's approved, so next year. Clear routing of interpretations, variances, and appeals. So, we discussed that making sure the ordinance was clear about how that would be handled. A written summary after each workshop, so that's what we're reading.
All right, so let me ask you this question, staff. Would you rather go to section 10 of workshop 2 and go through those, or would you rather us look through item number 8 bullets and see if there's any of those we can agree on?
If y'all wanna hit them hard and fast, we can do that and then move to the next one. If y'all can agree on some of these and we can go ahead and get them in writing, that'd be great. So we don't have to regroup.
All right, we'll start with bullet 1, traffic impact study threshold. What are you asking for there specifically?
I'm not setting that number, I didn't have a specific number, but there was discussion of,
Stair-stepping that to some degree.
yes, rather than if the DOT required one for, Mr. Johnson in the meeting was talking about that 12 homes and them having to meet that same task that somebody that's doing 40 homes has to meet. So providing the question was a threshold for that, or stair step, that would be required.
Similar to what the state has for their roads, is that?
It could be, yes, sir. I would say we need more definitive.
Right now, we say 11 homes, we require a traffic study. And I had suggested that we move that up to 20, or we move that up to some bigger number, because right
Even
now.
if we don't define a major and minor as 20, we could just
We
still
could
change
adjust that
this,
one.
couldn't we?
Yes, we can.
Well,
So here's my struggle with that, is we're requiring a traffic study. But why? If we know, but if we know that a road is at a minimum capacity, that it is a major road, according to our ordinance, county road, and you only have 11 homes on it, why are we making the 12th home get a traffic study?
We're making the 11th home get a traffic.
Or the
study.
11th home
Yeah.
get a traffic study?
The
And I'm saying we
traffic
shouldn't.
study is related not just to that road it's on, but the intersections that it dumps onto and how it affects out, not just the private road that it may be on. It affects the intersections, et cetera. That's what that traffic study entails, because
it may not
those
just,
do
in
affect.
other words, it may
public
not just be
roads.
trips. It may not just be, trips per day. It may also be the layout of the roads.
Well, right, and that's where I'm going.
The
is-
eyesight, that's, I think what you're concerned with is this would not relate to necessarily the private road itself. 'cause
Right,
that's
we're not
what
doing a
talking
traffic
about.
study on private
We're,
roads,
the traffic study would be what
on the
changes
road
need
it
to
dumps
be
out
made
onto.
about
What I'm saying
that.
is, if we've got a major, and this is where our capacities come into play, if we have a major road that is, it is not even mid-level of capacity, why are we enforcing traffic studies on those roads? If we,
Because that's the only way we know if a decel lane is required, or do we need a turning lane right there? Without that traffic study, we wouldn't know that.
okay, so it's just for,
The margin of amount of traffic is not the only thing that's considered.
So
Right
maybe
angle turns or.
The turns, the safety, all of that
Yeah.
comes into play in the traffic study.
Let me look, is everybody okay with, I'll make a motion to let our public members speak again.
I'll second that. Haney.
All in favor?
Aye.
Come on up, Tom.
All right, a lot of discussion on this. The traffic study does not just involve the traffic study, okay? It is so much more than that. It's all about making the developer pay for the upgrades. That was the main impetus behind that whole thing to begin with. The traffic study only says how much that road's gonna have to be upgraded, period. Then you also have the factor that comes in, so the developer's got a way to recoup some of his money over the next 10 years based on the amount of houses that are built and go on the record and everything else. There's a whole lot more to this thing than just a quote-unquote traffic study. It was always about making the developer pay for the road. It was never about safety or anything else, except for the idea that in general, in some cases, yeah, you need to upgrade the road just to ensure the safety, but it was always about who was gonna pay for it, period. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
And that would still apply, I agree with Mr. Markovich. That's the point, is if upgrades are needed, the taxpayer basis as a whole should not be responsible for a decel lane being put in. That should be on the burden of the developer.
All right, so after, experiencing bullet number 1 of matters not yet decided, I don't think we're gonna get through many of these bullets. So maybe we ought to move to section 10 and workshop 2 and discuss stuff that we know we can agree on and get that on solid ground.
Agreed.
Are you okay with that?
That sounds good to me. Tell me when y'all are ready. It's page
Ready.
12 in the next section.
Go ahead.
Okay. The first is move private subdivision road standards from 26-2 to chapter 32. Do y'all want those moved or left where they are?
Yep, move them.
No, leave them.
Thought we wanted them in chapter 32.
Not private roads. We want all the road standards
In roads.
in roads.
So there was talk back and forth about that from way back, and I never got a comfortable understanding of one way or the other. But I do think it makes sense. Can you tell us why 32? I remember in the workshop, you said somebody being a development standard.
It would be part of the land development standards that are in 32, because that's where private roads comes in, is when you're doing some kind of.
Since we don't regulate private roads in general,
Right. it
only
just
place
would
we have
apply.
any kind of thing we wanna say is under subdivision developments.
So
We
is
removed
it,
them to 32, I thought.
It was more for the fact that it all be housed in the same place, was the idea behind it.
so from a standpoint of the consumer, you explaining things to the consumer, is it better to be in roads and say, here's the roads requirements for your subdivision? You're gonna be private road, or, of course, as I understand it now, there may not be any more public road subdivisions, maybe, but
That's up to the council. I think they're leaving that open, but the intent is not to take roads that are not for the public good. But,
We
so-
still have engineered some language into, I think, chapter 32, that if we wanted to accept
I
a
think-
a private road as public by the
Correct.
county, then they have to consider extra stuff, and they have to either decide they want to do it or not a certain way.
Correct, and it references back to 20.
References back to 26.
I
And-
think
and
y'all
to-
actually added a paragraph, which we
Correct.
needed
We did.
to fix some of that.
Right, and so just for the simplicity of it, if I am the average citizen, I'm gonna look for road standards under roads. I'm gonna look for subdivision design under subdivisions. And that's some of the problem we had earlier on, is we had this peppered throughout.
All right, so bullet number 1, it appears we're gonna not move private subdivision information to chapter 32. Private roads, chapter
Okay.
32, we're gonna leave it there.
All right, then that negates
Can-
number 2.
Can we just reference in 32?
It is.
It is, yeah.
There we go. Okay, done.
Consolidate and coordinate road, private road, drive, and driveway definitions. Basically, that was just making sure that in all 3 chapters, they're defined the same way,
Yes.
so that
Yes.
everything matches.
You missed that bullet, keep county road acceptance provisions in chapter 26, that's a yes.
Well, the only reason that was specified is because we were gonna move the other stuff, so. it
Right, so
kind of-
that- I got you.
It negates itself, but, we've already skipped the other one, y'all aren't approving that. Separate design requirements from construction requirements and require appropriate engineering certification. Y'all said no to that. And establish an explicit county road classification table and connect each classification to applicable design and study obligations. Y'all said no to that. Expand and graduate traffic study requirements while preserving developer responsibility for studies and attributable improvements. That's where we were going back to that graduated requirement for, traffic studies.
I personally think that's a good thing,
We just need to come up
just
with.
need to come up with specifics, right?
So, would y'all be agreeable to, if I reached out to DOT and asked them if they can give us some specifics on how they, if there is a classification? I understand that, any encroachment permit, anything they do, you have to have an encroachment permit. But there is some level of a trigger for when they want that more extensive study. Do we wanna reach out to them and see if they have a trigger, and would y'all be okay if that goes in the language and y'all can review it at the next phase?
Yes.
Yes.
Let me make note of that. Okay. Preserve the general policy that internal subdivision roads remain private with selective county acceptance only for demonstrated public benefit. I think
Yes.
y'all added
Yes.
that paragraph last time.
Yeah, and Mr. Durham specifically mentioned that one too, so.
Yes. Require clear recorded disclosure of private road status and maintenance responsibility. And I think, again, that was included in one of your paragraphs.
It's that paragraph.
Yes, sir, I believe it was. Replace ambiguous grandfathering language with an objective date and trigger. Right now, it doesn't give a specific date of when, it just says that previous ordinance. We were saying actually give the specific date, and I believe it was December 16th, maybe, of 2008. add that specifically in it so that there's no confusion. And that applies to when it, going from a drive to a road and whether they have to meet the standard or not. But now we're actually reducing the standards. So they should all meet. But I do think we need to, I would still say it needs to be there just in
To
case.
reference that date of 2008.
Yes, sir, so there's no confusion there. If
That's
a road
fine.
is subpar, or like, doesn't meet the size, we can still make it work, so. All right, verify fire access requirements before setting access length or width rules.
Isn't that already in chapter 26 under private roads? Mickey?
It says you must conform to,
It says you gotta conform to the fire
Fire
safety,
code.
and that's included.
Okay. Require engineered bridge or culvert documentation and proof of required signage.
that's already in the chapter also.
What we were asking for is, changing it so that it's, we could require them to submit proof that signage has been posted. We don't have to go out and do an inspection, cause then just proof that this has been done, that's what we.
On private roads,
No, sir, on the bridge or culvert documentation. So if they're putting in a bridge, right now the ordinance requires them to provide certain documentation for that, but it requires roads and bridges to go out and inspect to see if a sign's been posted. We're saying, could we allow them to
Why
provide
are we
documentation?
doing that for private roads?
yes,
Safety for a bridge?
yes, but
Somebody
the,
driving across a bridge, and that, you're crossing a body of water and all of those things, and usually it's affecting, so typically DES is involved with that. There's a multi-level approach on bridges.
right, and that's in the ordinance that it has to be
Yes, sir.
engineered.
We're not changing any of that. None of that would change. The only thing I'm asking for is a statement that rather than having to have an inspection of their signage, literally a sign posted saying the weight limit, that we will allow them to submit us documentation that that signage has been posted.
I think that's,
That's all we're asking.
I think that's
We
a,
not want to inspect.
We don't inspect them because they're engineered to their status.
Okay,
If we inspect the actual construction of it, then there's some.
so what
if
you're
we say
saying
it's
is
good,
we
it's not,
want,
we got a problem.
we can't do what the ordinance is currently asking, that's what you're saying.
No, sir, I'm saying that it would just alleviate the, roads and bridges from having to go say, yes, your sign is on the side of this.
I think
All I'm
it's-
asking for is them.
I think if we require somebody to supply, sorry to interrupt, to supply that rather than us going and inspecting it, what happens if 10 days later, somebody hits it with a car, knocks it down? The liability is on us to continually drive by that bridge
I
to make
get
sure
it.
there's a sign there.
Yeah.
That's all we're changing, so we're making no change otherwise except just
good with it.
providing proof of the sign posted.
I'm good with that.
All right. Replace vague references to external standards with precise addition controlled citations. So I think that was in reference to if a,
Put a code in there.
actual code section, if there is.
And there may still be a few in there, and if there are, they probably need to be specific.
That's what that is in reference to. So I would say
But-
we'll hit those as they
well-
come up.
We have to be careful about that though, because grandfather, if somebody has designed it to a code at the time,
Well, then that is, if it meets the code at the time, we're not coming back. This applies to anything new. If anything's new, it's gotta meet
Okay.
the current standard, whatever that fire code standard or whatever it is. This came up, but it was clarified treatment of lawfully existing structures affected by later right-of-way changes. And by that, I believe it was making sure that the non-conforming structure language was clear, so that there was no confusion if a right-of-way changed or something happened. And by that is say that a driveway went to a drive and it affected the right-of-way, and that then forced that house to be encroaching. So make sure that the non-conforming structures clarified that structure was fine, they were not in violation of any setbacks.
No, I don't, and the reason I say we need to think about that is this is the same thing we run into with the housing developments, where they would put in narrower road and then wanted to change that road width to meet public road standards, and how would that be any different than what we're requiring the developer to do if the road that they're wanting to put the development on does not meet county standards?
Okay, let me address first, the ordinance already says this, so we're just making sure it's clear. But that's already the way we approach it already. If it's if the ordinance, and this applies to, maybe there's a change in the ordinance, so it becomes a non-conforming structure, because the ordinance changed, and so now it doesn't meet whatever the requirement is. So it's non-conforming, it's just clarifying that information.
Yes, but I think we went
Be your
in, I think we went into the road standard, or maybe it's 32, and we stated that if the road upgrade required an encroachment upon lot density size, that's where the issue came in. And it dealt with private roads in subdivisions being turned over to the
So
public roads.
wouldn't this one be overcome by events as far as, similar to the other ones? If we're not gonna regulate private roads within the subdivisions, would this not be
Actually,
part of
this,
that?
non-conforming structures are gonna stay non-conforming structures. They are. I think what you're talking about is if you end up with this mass non-conforming down a road, I believe that's what you're referring to.
Correct.
And that is that's a good question. I don't know how if it affects a whole street. But based on what we've got right now, they're not gonna have to widen that road, so it's not gonna be an issue. Most of them are gonna hit the 20-foot requirement. We're not at, we've now reduced it to 20, so most of these roads are wider than that now, right of way.
So again, do we,
I
is
don't
this,
think this is gonna be an issue. I can just leave it as it is if that's how y'all prefer.
I think this needs some further investigation.
Do we wanna look at any of these in the other sections or call it good?
do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
He did. He did? He said.
I was looking at 11, sorry, I was looking
Do you
at.
want to adjourn or not?
Britt,
All in favor?
Sorry. That was a tennis ball.